It's 7 o'clock by the U.S. Navy clocks, but we need to wait for 2 more councillors to sit down so that we have quorum and we can start the meeting. So we'll just wait for them to arrive. Councillors, it's past 7 o'clock. If we can have our seats, that would be appreciated.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Once they go in,
Okay, is everyone ready to begin? Let's call this meeting of Saanich Council to order on Monday, November 23rd. Just to let everyone know that we have a few absences tonight. Councillor Plant is recovering from surgery. We wish him all well. Councillor Haynes has gone home sick. Councillor Bryce is away, and Councillor Berglund is in Mexico. But we do have 5 of 9 here to conduct this meeting. So with that, we'll begin with the first item of the agenda, the adoption of the minutes. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The adoption of the minutes is the special council meetings of October 29th, November 10th, and November 16th. The council and committee of the whole of also November 16th.
Move adoption of the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to the next item, please. Item B.
This next item is B1, is the exempt staff bylaw number 9362. This is for final reading, the bylaws with respect to setting out for remuneration benefits and representation for exempt employees.
Someone move final reading?
Move final reading.
Thank you. Someone second? Second by Councillor Sanders. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
And next item is item B2. This was the late agenda item. This is with respect to 3974 Cedar Hill Road. It's final reading of zoning amendment bylaw 9341 and also approval of the development permit. This is with respect to rezoning the property, again at 9374 Cedar Hill for proposed 4-unit townhouse development. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we do that in one motion? These 2 motions, all right. So I'd like to move the first motion, please. Final reading.
Move first.
Final reading, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Moved by Councillor Brownell, seconded by Councillor Murdoch. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None are opposed. That's carried unanimously.
Move the development permit DPR 00558.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. Thank you so much. All right, this will move on to item C of the agenda, which is the public input. If you'd like to speak to anything in items D and E, that's the tender for the Glanford Avenue, Mann Avenue intersection, and the Craig Flower Cosapson Park license of occupation. And item E1 is the council remuneration and expenses policy. If you'd like to share your thoughts, please come up to the microphone, give us your name and address, and if you can limit your comments to 5 minutes, it would be most appreciated.
Yes, good evening, Council, members of the public. My name is Tony Rose, I'm a taxpayer and I reside at 5194 Beckton Road. Seems we have an agenda tonight which epitomises the culture of entitlement which still prevails in local government. I'd like to give some thoughts on council expenses, which are regionally now over $20,000 a week. The mayor's stipend is, give or take a few $100,000, the councillor $40,000. A third of that is tax-free for expenses and no receipts. Most claim expenses on top of that. So just in expenses, the mayor gets $700 a week and a councillor $250 a week. On this evening's agenda, you'll see they're rewarding themselves with even more. That's as much in expenses as someone on minimum wage has to live on, and double the old age security. A councillor with 20 years service, and we have some of those, will have received in excess of $250,000 in expenses without a single receipt. The previous mayor, possibly over $500,000, again without a single receipt. So is it reasonable to be asked to account for that? Would any member of council be willing to tell the taxpayer how can you spend that much on incidentals? Do we need a bylaw which requires council members to provide details and receipts to taxpayers for all such expenses? After a year in office, we've yet to see any real evidence of action on transparency, accountability, and most importantly, control of spending of taxpayer funds. Which brings us to the proposed CRD budget, which will be presented in the weeks ahead, because included in that budget is a further $100,000 in expenses, as directors award themselves a 100% increase in salary. How many more millions will the CRD budget be going up this year? It's the biggest contract we have, yet it's with an organisation that has perhaps a questionable record of waste and management, one of the worst in the province, and one which has accumulated a massive debt of about $800 million. We need a full, detailed public review of how much they want from the taxpayer. Do we have council assurance that the multi-million-dollar contract will be scrutinised line by line? In previous years, it was just given a very cursory glance. The astonishing salary increases also raise the question, do council members who are also CRD directors have a conflict of interest? Should they be voting? You can't wear both hats at the same time. The vast majority of the Saanich electorate oppose this unmerited increase, and there's an elected duty, therefore, to oppose it. Perhaps even it's time to opt out completely from the CRD and wholly reject their budget. With amalgamation on a back burner, eliminating the CRD, a costly extra level of government, would have little opposition from the public and presents a huge saving, and you have an opportunity to do that when you vote for their budget. The other thing is, how will these increases affect our taxes? Do we have an indication of that yet? I hope this gives you some food for thought, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Please come forward.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm speaking on the same agenda item. The report recommending that the Finance, Audit and Personnel Standing Committee recommend to council that the district use the municipalities of Abbotsford, Delta, Kamloops, Kelowna, Langley, Nanaimo, North Vancouver District, and Victoria as comparator municipalities for council remuneration purposes. This recommendation is based on populations. I would like to suggest another comparator method, annual municipal expenditures. Expenditures are a more accurate indicator of the administrative responsibilities of municipalities as they represent the costs of supplying services to residents. I've attached, and I'll leave copies of this, a spreadsheet showing the 2014 expenditures for each of the 8 comparator municipalities. And I've taken those from their annual reports and their audited financial returns. Saanich's expenditures come out at 7th out of 9 municipalities, significantly less than Kelowna, Langley, Abbotsford, or Delta, and also behind Victoria. Secondly, 5 of the comparator municipalities are cities with definable downtown central business districts, whereas Saanich is a suburban municipality with no core area. The cities of Abbotsford, Kamloops, Kelowna, Nanaimo, and Victoria all face problems unique to downtown areas, that is, in-your-face homelessness, serious social issues, issues around nightlife, as well as more significant and more expensive development projects. The only large development project recently in Saanich has been Uptown. It's reasonable to state that council members in those 5 cities have to deal with the fallout of homelessness, policing, social issues, and major development projects to a far greater degree than do Saanich Council. Thirdly, not all municipalities are created equal. For some, wastewater treatment, recycling, landfill, and library services are municipal responsibility, whereas in Saanich these services are provided by others. For example, the Greater Victoria Public Library and the CRD. Kelowna and Abbotsford, for instance, have city-administered airports. Abbotsford and Mission share a wastewater treatment plant, and Kamloops and Kelowna operate their own wastewater plants. Kelowna also operates its own landfill and recycling program. The fourth issue is what the gentleman before me just spoke about, that 1/3 of council remuneration is an allowance for expenses, but it is out-of-pocket expenses are paid separately, they're reimbursed. So 1/3 of the $37,625 Saanich council members receive is tax deductible. So if you take 1/3 of that amount and calculate it out, and then look at Victoria's, which are fully taxed, they do not get a third allowance that is tax-free. The difference in net income in the pocket is $2,993 as of right now. Using the same criteria, the mayor earns after tax $10,318 more than the mayor of Victoria, and I'm using Saanich staff figures. All of this, or it could be argued, less responsibility. Fifth, I would also like to mention that Saanich does not disclose the 1/3 taxable allowance on their annual financial statements of financial information separately. Both the CRD and Oak Bay, which use the same method of remuneration, do. They clearly show the 2 different allocations, so Saanich is not really being transparent by combining the 2. Also, the 5 members of council that sit on the CRD board will see their annual CRD stipends increase by roughly 90% as of January 1st. The new CRD stipend will be $17,000, and it's safe to assume that 1/3 will be tax-free just as it was last year. In conclusion, no one will argue, least of all me, that council members shouldn't be paid for serving their communities. However, regular taxpayers are not entitled to receive tax-free income, and just because federal regulations allow it, it's not necessary to take advantage of it. Victoria Council has taken their remuneration fully taxable for years. Why shouldn't Saanich follow Victoria's lead? In conclusion, I recommend that Saanich revisit its policy and eliminate the 1/3 taxable allowance and add that portion to their taxable remuneration. I also recommend that council reconsider the use of population statistics and instead use municipal expenditures of comparator municipalities to determine council remuneration. And thank you for your attention.
Mr. Nielsen, could you go back to the earlier statement that you made? It was, I believe you were talking about how we do our reporting and report this expenses. Could you go over that again quickly?
Okay, and this,
make sure it's captured.
The SOFI statements, there are
Yes.
statements of financial information that every municipality has to submit annually. It shows remuneration and expenses, and those are reimbursable expenses. Oak Bay shows remuneration, taxable, non-taxable allowance, and expenses. So there's 3 categories, and the same thing with Victoria. And the same thing with the CRD. They're shown separately. So the citizens can look and see what portion is tax-free.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I just ask our administrator to just pass that note along to our director of finance and
I
bring it
have
back to
some
council
comments.
so we can have a discussion on it? On the agenda items, are any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward. We do have an open forum at the end of the council meeting, but if you want to speak specifically to these agenda items, please come forward and call for a second time. Call for a third time. All right. Seeing no more speakers, we'll end the public input period and we'll move on to item D1. Madam Clerk.
This next item is the tender number 29 for the Glanford Avenue, Mann Avenue intersection. The report of the Director of Engineering is recommending the Council award the tender to Chew Excavating, a division of Almax Contracting Limited, in the amount of $1,426,490.
Any questions?
recommendation?
Someone second it? Second by Councilor Murdoch. Any questions for our Director of Engineering? Seeing none, I'll call the question on this award. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to item D2.
The next item is the Craig Flower Cossapsum Park, license of occupation. The report of the Director of Parks and Recreation is recommending the council approve entering into the license of occupation as presented.
Thank you. Is our Director of Parks here? Mr. Harrison, could you please come up and just introduce us for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For a number of years, as is identified in the report, the district has had the benefit of the lands down by the bridge. What this license of occupation will do will formally grant us the right to make use of that property, whereas we didn't have it before. So it's a long-term arrangement, allows us to continue providing the park services to the district as has been done up to this point, is something that simply formalizes the agreement or the informal arrangement that we had up to this stage.
All right, thank you. Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Henderson. Thank you for bringing this forward this evening. It's nice to see you. My question is just with respect to any additional costs. So I recognize that this has been the de facto situation for us for a number of years. It's nice to see it now formalized for our own security, I think, and security of future use for the district. Other than maintenance, which is a cost that we would already assume, are there any additional costs associated with this agreement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Murdoch, no, the operational costs that we have with regards to this park won't go up as a result of this license of occupation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent question, by the way. Councilor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Then presumably the province retains the responsibility for all maintenance and so forth of the schoolhouse.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the schoolhouse has been leased out to a third party, and so they have a separate arrangement. We are not obligated to any maintenance requirements for the schoolhouse.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion on the floor. Moved by Councilor Murdoch. Someone second it, please.
Second.
It's a little harder now with only 5 up here. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item E1. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item under E1 is the council remuneration and expenses policy. The recommendation from the Finance, Audit and Personnel Standing Committee meeting is recommending that the list of comparative municipalities for the purposes of calculating council remuneration be confirmed and incorporated into the policy. This would be Abbotsford Delta, Kamloops, Kelowna, the Township of Langley, Nanaimo, North Vancouver, and Victoria.
I'll move the recommendation.
Someone second? Second by Councilor Murdoch. Any discussion? Councilor Murdoch.
I guess I don't see our Director of Finance here this evening, but I just want to confirm, and for the benefit of those in attendance this evening, and I appreciate the
I think
comments.
she's traveling, actually.
Pardon?
Is she here? No. She's away, correct? Sorry, Councilor Murdoch. Go ahead.
No, that's quite all right, thank you. I thought maybe I just didn't see her up there. I appreciate the comments from the members of the audience this evening who spoke to us. And just for confirmation for them and for us, what we're considering this evening is not a change in practice, but formalizing in policy what we use as a comparative group. There are no other changes to involving council remuneration or expenses this evening, other than that formalization in policy.
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. I do just want to make a comment to the public that we did look at this at the committee, and while it did bring down the potential for future increases, it's perhaps not going far enough. We do have a standard here we've been using for a number of years to do this, but the comments from the speakers earlier have been heard, and I'll personally take those back to the committee level to see what we can do about developing other options. Certainly the cost of living in this region is getting higher and higher, and it's not being helped by the other costs that we impose ourselves. It is an income for us. The expenses portion of it, it was a decision that was made years ago, I believe, to have the expenses portion of our salary non-taxable rather than to have a higher level of income that would then be taxed. That portion is used for allowances and expenses. When I go driving around for business and I put gas in the car, it comes out of that amount. It doesn't come out of a check that the municipality cuts me because I filed a bill and I received and I want some money back. So I think we all are using it. Maybe we're not using the whole amount of it, but that's been the system we've had for a long time. Maybe we can improve on it. So with that, I think we'll move on to item F, which is reports from Sandwich Advisory Committee chairs. So with that, I'd like to Councilor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I chair the BIPED Committee, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. The committee has had a very busy time lately, as there have been a lot of projects brought forward by engineering for new and improved pedestrian facilities and new and improved cycling facilities. And that's a nice way to be busy in that respect. And really, I think on behalf of the committee, we want to congratulate staff for the rapid movement to modernize the municipality in terms of providing for alternative forms of transportation, and also just updating some of the looks and feel of some of the major streets in the municipality. Probably most people in here have gone through the new Cook Street section, recognized, I think, what a successful project that has been and is. And shortly we will see the results of a similar exercise on Tillicum and Glanford. These are things that I think are important to the local residents. They serve as traffic calming. I'm quite sure Cook Street is more comfortable to live on than it was before, but they also provide for the alternate forms of transportation. In this case, most directly cycling and pedestrian as improved facilities. And that's important. They've been priorities of this municipality for some 10 years, and if they are going to be priorities, then it's appropriate that we invest in them. A big thing that's coming before has first come to the committee for information and will come forward in the future, and the committee looks forward to working on, is the issue of an active transportation plan for the municipality, put forward by the engineering department. I think it will be an extremely important policy for the municipality and can set the stage for where we need to go in the future. And the other big item on the committee's agenda, well, two I guess, is still consideration of the Shelburne Valley Action Plan. As members of the audience may know, there's been suggestion of 2 interim policies for providing improved pedestrian and cycling facilities on Shelburne, option 1 and option 2. They will, I would imagine that will come back to council in late spring or in the late fall, winter rather, or sometime in spring in the next year. And the committee is certainly involved in that process. And perhaps even more important is the fact that we are embarking on a study for the Douglas Street corridor and what will happen there. What I think is the best location in the entire region for new, denser communities that, if done properly, can be very attractive places to live where you can actually, if you wish to, live without a car. So the committee will be very carefully monitoring that as well. That's my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Durbin. Councilor Bratton.
I don't sit on any committees, but I'm liaison to the Administrative Traffic Committee. And some of the things we've been looking at of late is playground signage. We've now been looking at putting a speed limit underneath it. People should be aware of what the speed limit is in the playground. We've had some different thoughts around putting speed limits. So we've done that in a few places. And also, I'm not sure council is aware of it, but When we did the Craig Flower Bridge, ICBC had suggested to Saanich that we don't use a school sign, that we use a playground sign. So that's kind of what's in place there as well. And I noticed that in Calgary they're looking at replacing school signs with playground signs. As council's aware, all the schools in Saanich operate as playgrounds as well. And posting speed limits is helpful. School zones are just for a specific time and not when school's not in. So I know other jurisdictions are looking at it, and we've looked at it in some places. And other than that, we continue to deal with parking issues, neighborhood issues, neighbor-to-neighbor issues, and we continue to do that. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Murdoch, report from E&A.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I chair the Environment and Natural Areas Advisory Committee. Have been the chair of that committee for the last 3 years, and it's a very enjoyable group. I remember many years ago being a member on the committee and enjoying what could sometimes be a very technical discussion, but always a very informed, knowledgeable, and often very passionate discussion about the environment and our natural areas in Saanich. So it's my great pleasure to continue to be the chair of that group. This past month, we've focused on a number of issues, but what I want to highlight for council and members of the audience this evening is a look at the right to a healthy environment, which of course was a resolution that this council passed in January. It identified a number of key activity areas or key initiatives that Saanich would undertake in order to ensure a healthy environment for every Saanich resident. What the committee has done in the last month is look at each of those measures and determine where there has been action, where there needs to be further action, and where there is yet to be anything initiated in the hope that we can bring that to council with some recommendations so that we live up to the obligations that council set out for itself as part of the right to a healthy environment. I think council was recognized and encouraged for that effort when that took place, and it's important that the good work that is taking place be acknowledged, and areas where we need to take further action, that we are pursuing that in earnest. I'm quite pleased to tell you that a number of the areas have been very well canvassed by the activities within this district, that we are most certainly on the right path. But there will be a number of areas where we need to take further action in order to meet our obligation. So I look forward to bringing that to council when the committee has formalized those recommendations, and I look forward to council's action on those initiatives. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Arts Cultural Heritage is kind of a bit of a mixed bag, so we have a lot to work on, but we wanted to speak about our project that we've been working on most of this year, and that will come to fruition next week, and that's our celebration of Municipal Hall's 50th anniversary. So next week on Tuesday, December the 1st, we're going to have, we talked at the beginning about a reenactment of the original council meeting and decided that probably if we couldn't find a closer, they didn't fit. So, we're going to have a special meeting, and it will start at 6 o'clock with tours of the Municipal Hall, members of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee, and the Saanich Heritage Foundation, which is also working with us. We'll take tours through the building and give people an opportunity to see the special elements that makes this building quite unique and certainly at the time it was built quite different and well received. Following that, our special council meeting, Ken Johnson, who's the chair of the president of the Hallmark Society, will be speaking on the architecture and the history of the Municipal Hall. And follow that, we'll be doing an unveiling of the sign. Now, when we talk about the sign, I know people think that we're going to go outside in the cold, and that large concrete wall that has appeared is going to have a sign on it. But indeed, the sign will actually be up above here on the dais, and we'll have an unveiling of it, and it will be installed in the nicer weather, and perhaps we'll do something in the spring to honor that as well. Brad Shuya, who's the chair of the Heritage Foundation, will be doing the unveiling with the mayor. And at that is, we asked Brad, because he's being the chair of the foundation, as well as the fact that as an architect, he donated his time to do the design. I think this turned out quite successfully. For some people here that thought when I said sign, it was going to be a little sign, it's been quite a surprise with it. I believe it will add a real entrance to the Darwin side of the building, and it's probably 50 years overdue. Following that, we'll break and have a reception and have some goodies, and of course cake cutting at the end of the meeting. And following along on the 2nd, the following day, Valerie Green, who is a historian and author, she's going to be doing a speech at 10 o'clock in the morning for those that can't come in the evening, and she's going to talk about the mayors of Saanich. You're quite safe, Mayor Atwell, she hasn't got that far along, and she's not going to be talking about all the mayors, just a few select ones. And at that time, there will also be tours of the municipal hall. And then on Thursday and Friday, there'll be self-guided tours, and throughout the week, they'll have self-guided tours. So we have an opportunity to look at the display place. Our archivist, Carolyn Duncan, has done an incredible job of assembling what things would have been like in 1965 at the time the building was built. And she's got some pictures up on the walls. I haven't had a chance to see those yet. I was very fortunate to get permission from the Ryerson University for original pictures that were taken, photographs that were taken at the time the building was built, and got permission from the family for us to use those, and that image will be used on the sign that will be installed outside. The building has won many awards. Park and Tilford Award was for our landscaping. And we've talked about, we would hope that this time in this special meeting that we were going to be able to the final reading on the designation of